One of the most exclusive watch brands on the planet, Audemars Piguet, did a collaboration with Swatch and it completely broke the internet. You had so many people pissed off, you also had so many people happy. You had people like the rapper DDG that was really angry with the amount of money that he spent, saying that he was going to sell his watch, and you had other people like OT Genesis that said he was going to get rid of his AP. But here is what I think everyone that has been talking about this has really been missing. This story is less about marketing, and to me, I think it might be some sort of damage control. Audemars Piguet is a company that is very famous for threatening people and going through with lawsuits concerning their octagonal casing. And we have seen them win many cases. In 2012, for example, they won a massive case and they were given $10 million in a settlement. But more recently, Audemars Piguet has been trying to trademark this design in many different markets, all to no avail. They tried to trademark it in Japan in 2024. They lost that case. They tried to trademark it in a case in 2025. They also lost that case. And I think sometimes when big brands lose these kind of trademarking cases, it showcases that it's fair game and maybe we can design dupes and fakes of these watches and there isn't too much of an issue. And so therefore AP has a decision to make. Do they flood the market with their own designs, or do they just allow the market to create the fakes that they want to create, and then they aren't really seeing any of the money on the back end when those products flood the market? So instead of them allowing the market to be flooded with cheap royal oaks, I think they've beaten the counterfeiters to it, to be honest. And I think strategically this is very intelligent, and more intelligent than a lot of people are giving them credit for. Now, just for context, Audemars Piguet is a very iconic 150-year-old Swiss watchmaker, and the Royal Oak was designed by Gel Genta in 1972. This watch is very revolutionary because it's a luxury sports watch in stainless steel at a time when fine watchmaking meant gold and diamonds. It also has an octagonal bezel, 8 exposed hexagonal screws, and a crazy dial pattern. And these watches can be super expensive. Sometimes they can be up to $500,000, sometimes even more, depending how limited these watches are. Swatch, on the other hand, is a brand that is known to make fun, cheap watches. And it's a brand that really rose to prominence in the 80s with their different things that they were making, like the Pops watch, which this collaboration, of course, is referencing. More recently, we've seen a lot of collaborations with Swatch and bigger watch brands. An example of that is Omega, where they worked on the Moon Swatch. That was insane. When it released, so many people were queuing up outside, fighting for their right to essentially buy this watch. And the crazy thing about when this watch first released is it retailed for around, I think it was just over £200 at the time. And just in a week, the resale had gone all the way up to £900. So I think another thing about this AP and Swatch collab is so many people were anticipating it. That's why we saw people queuing outside 6 days before. A lot of people essentially have just been waiting for it because they thought it was a massive opportunity to make loads of money. And so now, of course, they've upped the ante. Instead of collaborating with Omega, which is, of course, a brand that is within the Swatch group, they've decided to expand their horizons and collaborate with Audemars Piguet. This will be releasing on the 16th of May, and it will be coming in 8 different colorways. It will be in the form of a pocket watch. A lot of people were anticipating that it would be a wristwatch, so many people that had been queuing up days before, a lot of them are leaving the line. They're pissed off. They're like, I wanted to have my AP for the low. What's going on here? And there are, of course, the very iconic Royal Oak elements with this watch. You see the octagonal bezel, the hexagonal screws. So there are still the elements from AP strongly on this Swatch collab. Now, of course, it's more than a pocket watch. You can attach it to a lanyard, as you guys can see in the videos from the brand. There's so many publications like Hypebeast and Highstabiety that have shown all these different ideas of ways that people can style it. I'm guessing that people are going to turn it into some sort of a fashion accessory. We'll see a lot of people styling their AP swatches with their bags. It's kind of going to be the new status symbol in a way. It's kind of similar to Labubus. So I think that's how a lot of people are going to style them. And why I also think this makes a lot of sense for AP, you have to think AP has more models than the Royal Oak, but when you think of AP, you just think of the Royal Oak. And this is a way for them to talk about their heritage because they have made their own pocket watch designs. And that was a big reference to this collaboration with Swatch. So it kind of brings a focus back onto those original watches that they were making. And I hope that they can use these collaborations if they do more in the future, which I think they will because of the narrative I brought forward about the lawsuit and the fact that maybe they want to flood the market with a lot of watches at the lower price points, and they can do that through collabs. Because this Swatch collaboration, it essentially taints their image slightly, but I think it's the most tasteful way to do it, right? If they are collaborating with brands that are respected but just cheaper. And I think that could be a smart way for people to access Audemars Piguet at the entry level, and then, you know, as they further themselves in their careers, as they get more into watches, then they can invest in a more expensive piece from Audemars. And I think a really interesting story about this whole Swatch AP collaboration is really what it says about status and how people view status symbols. I saw two sides of the same coin. I saw people who wanted access to a certain status that Audemars Piguet is associated with, but at a lower price point. And then people who owned AP watches that are really expensive were almost angry that people had an easier buy-in to the same status that they have afforded themselves by paying more money. Really, really strange. And the perfect example of this is someone called DDG, who I'm actually a big fan of. I've watched a lot of his streams for years, his videos for years. But I found it really interesting when he went on stream and he was complaining about this collaboration and why he thinks that this collaboration is going to make him sell his watch. So watch the clip.
Y'all seen this shit? $300, nigga. Like, just seeing this make me want to sell my AP. AP, what's up, man? What's going on? I done spent $200,000 on one of y'all watches. You telling me I could have waited till 2026 and spent $300 and got the same effect? The hoes can't tell the difference.
And I think the most important part to pull out of this clip, to be honest, is him talking about how he spent $200,000 on one of the AP watches, and he's saying that he could have just waited until 2026 and spent $300 and gotten the same effect. It's not the same effect, though. It's not the same product. Audemars Piguet Royal Oaks are made with precious materials, precious metals. Swatch is known for using plastic components. AP Royal Oaks use some of the most respected movements across the whole industry. This collaboration with Swatch and AP is using a System 51 movement, which some people consider it kind of mechanical, but it's really shitty. And if you go online and you look at the reviews of the System 51 movement, people say that it's really bad. It starts to fail really easily. It goes wrong really quickly. So it's not the same. It's like me being pissed off if I owned a Bugatti and then someone else had a different car, but they bought a body kit that made their car look exactly the same as my Bugatti. Well, it's not the same product. And I think it's really important to note that because it really exposes who is really into watches and who is just into buying into things because they see them as status symbols. And I think with a lot of people, it was very much the latter. Because ultimately, for example, if someone has a body kit car, it's not the same as the Bugatti. If we go on the track, they're going to get smoked because of the engineering that's gone into making the Bugatti. The reason why you buy into a Bugatti is because of the engineering, because it's the pinnacle of motoring for a lot of people. The engineering, it's the craft, right? It should be the same thing with watches. You like watches because maybe there is a personal story. Maybe it's a watch that your dad wore, someone in your family wore. You like the movement that has gone into the watch. You like what it's made out of. You like the way it looks. There should be much better reasons for why you like a watch other than if the hose can tell the difference or using it as a status symbol. And I think that is a big issue. I will also say that there's been so much conversation around, you know, Swatch being bad. I think this is another thing. Swatch is very iconic in the watch industry for very many different reasons than something like an Audemars Piguet, right? Swatch made watches fun in the 80s. They made it really cool. Things like the Pop Swatch, where you could pop out your watch face from the dial and put it on a jacket or a jumper, or put it on a lanyard, use it as an accessory. That is really cool. Swatch has always been known to make really fun watches that most people have experience with because of the price point. So I think Swatch holds a really great part in my heart. And I don't think it really matters. And this goes back to people thinking about watches from just a status symbol standpoint, which is really annoying. There's so many reasons to like a watch. I like everything from G-Shocks and Swatches all the way to APs and Vacheron Constantins and Patek Philippe's. They're all just good for different reasons. And I don't know why people had to turn it into some sort of class war when it came to the conversation around this collaboration. And I think that just shows how strong some of these luxury brands' marketing is, because essentially people believe that these watches, you know, exclusivity is the entire product, right? People believe that they're buying into scarcity, or that's kind of what they're doing. And they're just not realizing that this AP Swatch collab is just a completely different product entirely. They are two completely different things. And just to reiterate my point, I talked about the System 51 movement that this watch is using. So just to give you some background on what the System 51 movement is, it's Swatch's in-house flagship movement, and it's essentially a mechanical movement that they launched in 2013. It's made of just 51 components, which is why it's called System 51, and it's held together by a single screw, assembled entirely by robots in 20 minutes. It's actually the only fully automated Swiss mechanical movement in the world. It also has so many different other elements like 90 hours of power reserve, it's anti-magnetic, and it's super, super innovative. But to read a quote directly from my notes, just to talk to you guys about how people reacted when this movement first came out, someone said, "This was one of the worst watches ever made considering environmental impact, the worst mechanical watch ever made if you think about its longevity. Probably the most fragile modern watch ever made. Please don't buy this. The System 51 is only fun for 5 minutes." And one of the big issues with the System 51 movement is that it can't really be repaired. So if something goes really wrong, it's extremely difficult to repair. And that's why it's sort of seen as a throwaway movement. It's not really, if a watch has that movement, it's not a watch that you're going to own for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's not really that kind of thing. And the funniest thing about all of this, right, is this System 51 movement for this collaboration, it is slightly modified because it kind of had this hand-wound version because AP is involved. And it also shows you how people care more about brand names than they care about watchmaking, because all of a sudden now the System 51 movement is amazing, and you know, this is a testament to haute horology, I've seen people say online. And I think honestly people are just saying that because the name AP, Audemars Piguet, is involved. And so I personally find this AP and Swatch collaboration a very interesting proposition and story. I think that a lot of good or bad can come from it, but let's just see how it goes, and let's see what collaborations are done in the future. Thank you very much for watching. If you want more content, you can join as a YouTube member or as a Patreon. I really appreciate it. That's how I support this channel. And without further ado, I'll see you in the next video.